In this video, we are approaching springtime. We're getting very, very close, about 2 weeks away, the time I'm filming this. And because of that, I want to go over some of the things in the yard that you need to know as you approach spring on into spring with your different grass types. So I'm going to show you Bermuda grass, Zoysia grass, Centipede grass, and St. Augustine grass all in this video. I'm going to talk to you about them. I'm going to show you what they look like right now, and I'm going to tell you what to do and what not to do for these. Let's get started. Today's video is sponsored by Graham Spray Equipment. Instead of hearing about it from me today, I've got a special guest. Eric Marshall just picked up his second Graham spray rig. You just got your second Graham rig, brand new, never been used. But tell me a little bit about the rig you just picked up and why you went back and got another Graham rig.
Well, like you said, I'm Eric with Marshall Lawn Solutions. This is our second one. It's been vital for us. I got the 300-100 split, and then also a 100-gallon nurse tank on there to help out with the big lawns that I have for ride-ons. It's just been vital for me. I've never had any issues with it. It's a well-greased machine, and it's never let me down ever once.
What about your experience when you went to Graham to pick it up? Are they treating you okay over there?
Man, they cater to everything. They let you sit and you're talking to all the employees. You're coming out and making all your, any kind of adjustments you want to make. You never have any issues with them. They're more than happy to help anything out. Any kind of tweaks you want to make, like I told them they want to do a little. My reel thing was up here, and I told them let's put it down here for shorter people. Sometimes there is shorter people out there, and they just did it. And they took care of me. I've never had an issue with them.
All right, first up, you can see in my background is Bermuda grass, and then you look at it, it still looks very, very dormant, but I want to show it to you on a closer level. I'd still call that mostly dormant, and from a distance you may think it's totally dormant. But let's do something. Let's get down here on my knee, not your knee, and if I start getting rid of some of this, it's just old grass from last year. Look at there. When I did that, look at that. You see that? That's what's going on. You got some very tender green tissue there. So let's start with Bermuda grass. And I've got a few tips I want to share with you about Bermuda. One, seeing that, a lot of times people know that you can spray glyphosate on a dormant Bermuda grass lawn. And yes, you can do that. I'm testing it even now in another video where I'm spraying several plots at different rates to see if it delays the green up at all. And if I sprayed it on this lawn right now, it's not like I'm gonna kill the whole lawn, but what I just showed you with that green tissue in there, I don't doubt that I could definitely delay the green up at this point. So don't do that anymore. You're too late if you wanted to do that. As a side note, spraying glyphosate on dormant Bermuda is something I'm thinking about actually doing more next year because it's so effective on controlling weeds. I tested it out on Poa annua. I tested it out on another weed called Field Matter in separate videos, and it blew away the competition as far as controlling the weed. And again, if you do it when the Bermuda's still dormant, you're fine. It's not gonna, shouldn't affect the grass much at all, just on Bermuda, okay? But in this time when it's already starting to turn green, then you no longer want to do that. I want to show you something else that's going to be very important for you as we approach springtime, and this could apply for all your grass types, but I guess most importantly Bermuda. But let me show you something. All right, this is what I want to show you. Not how pretty these are, though they are pretty. This is called a Forsythia, I believe is how you say it. Forsythia, S-Y-T-H-I-A, I think so. Forsythia, and they're super pretty. Now, what I was taught was that crabgrass typically germinates about the time when the flowers fall off of this plant. Now, they just started blooming in the last week or so, but they're not falling on the ground yet. So the fact that there's flowers on here means that the crabgrass is going to be germinating very, very soon. So why would you say that it coincides with this shrub blooming or the flowers falling off of this and not just a date on the calendar? Well, think about it. Weather's not the same every year. These shrubs may bloom a little bit earlier one year, a little bit later one year. Same thing with crabgrass. It just depends on the weather. We get a really warm winter. It may, in my area, the crabgrass may germinate in February. You get a colder winter, then maybe it's going to extend on further into March. So it just depends, and that's going to vary in your area as well. Same thing with the shrubs. So they can be an indicator shrub. I'm not saying you got to go buy one of these and plant it in your yard, but it is kind of helpful. And I saw them bloom the other day, and it triggered my mind. I was like, hey, crabgrass is going to be germinating real soon. What does that mean? Well, that means you need to have your pre-emergent down. I use prodiamine, and put that down and get it watered in, especially if you got a Bermuda grass yard, and especially if you had one that was eat up with crabgrass in the past. You need to be getting that down ASAP, because the clock's ticking before that crabgrass starts to germinate. In the next week or two, I bet you some crabgrass is going to be germinating in my area. Another thing you can do, particularly with a Bermuda grass yard, but maybe with other grass types as well to some degree, but I showed you that underneath the canopy there, you've got some green grass starting to grow. And let me show you a different area here. This area just gets a lot of water, sits real flat, and the grass is super thin. I mean, look how green that is. You want to spray that with glyphosate? I don't think so. Not a good idea. So a lot more green here because it's getting plenty of sunlight, plenty of water. It's another situation where you want to look at the weather forecast, in my opinion, and not necessarily the calendar. But I had somebody text me yesterday, said, hey Jason, would now be a good time to scalp my Bermuda lawn? Well, and it's in March when I'm filming this. I said, yeah, you know, I think so. I don't think we're going to get another hard freeze. Now, what may happen if you scalp it and it puts up some new little tender growth and starts, you know, you got all this little tender green grass there, and then you got a hard freeze, then it would kind of zap that and turn it brown again. Probably wouldn't kill it. But I don't think we're going to get another hard freeze. I don't know, obviously. But I would say, yeah, you can go ahead, because all that dormant grass is not going to turn green again. It's going to put up new growth. You might say, now, why are we scalping it again? Well, what you're doing is getting rid of all that dormant grass, you know, allowing the sunlight to come down there and warm the roots. Now, I tell people often, if you want a green lawn in the spring, you want that quick early green up, especially on that Bermuda lawn, scalping it's probably one of the best things you can do. Again, if you do it too early, you may get hit with a late frost and cause some damage to it. Temporary damage usually, but if you do it and you allow that sunlight to warm up the roots, you're going to get that quicker green up than somebody who left the dormant grass long and is kind of insulating the roots. From a weed control perspective, you see my yard doesn't really have many weeds in it at this time because I've already sprayed it. I sprayed a pre-emergent back in January. That's where I live. You know, it may be ice cold where you live in January. But yeah, if you got broadleaf weeds, you can go after them with different products. I use products called Triplet is one three-way product that I use and spray and blanket the yard and control a bunch of broadleaf weeds. You might mix that in with the prodiamine on your application. Change Up's another broadleaf product that I use a lot of times. If you've got some grassy weeds, you can go after those with different grassy weed products. Sometimes I use that Celsius Certainty combination. Sometimes I'm using Tribute Total. If I've got Dallas grass in the yard and it's starting to show its ugly head again, then I might spray that with Tribute Total and Dismiss is a combination I like to do. I like to try to get that early before it gets a lot of momentum and power behind it. In the summer, it's going to be harder to kill. Let's transition over to Zoysia. One thing to do in this video is just show you the grasses, what they're looking like. You saw my Bermuda lawn, and some Bermuda lawns just going to green up faster than others for whatever reason. But as we look at Zoysia, you're going to see that it's already significantly greener than the Bermuda. All right, this is a little bit of Zoysia. It doesn't look great, but it looks like Zoysia. It sounded insulting. Zoysia looks great when it's done right. My Zoysia doesn't look great. But look at this. Look at the green that's in this. So, you know, you would never spray, or you shouldn't at least, spray glyphosate on a dormant Zoysia line because they say it doesn't actually go fully dormant. And I believe that. Plus it's against the label. But you can see a significant amount of green on this one, and it should change very rapidly over the next few weeks to almost fully green, depending on the weather. And while I'm not gonna come in and scalp a Zoysia lawn, if my Zoysia, and sometimes it does like an emerald Zoysia or something, if it gets super thick and it's just really, really tall and thick, this might be a time to at least take it down some to get it to a manageable height, because it can get so thick it's hard to cut. I mean, it really becomes a problem sometimes. Now in the Zoysia lawns, I've already sprayed prodiamine on this as well. I will say it's not nearly as important as it is on a Bermuda lawn. There's some Zoysia lawns, to be honest with you probably don't spray it at all and they still don't get any crabgrass. Now they may have some other weeds. So I mean, if you know your yard is just so thick and healthy that it doesn't get any crabgrass, you don't even have to spray the pre-emergent if you don't want to, and you could just deal with weeds from a post-emergent standpoint. For me, on the Bermuda Zoysia lawns early in the year, spraying prodiamine, mixing triplet in there with it to knock out broadleaf weeds. But the Zoysia lawns typically have far less weeds than the Bermuda lawn. I forgot to mention one thing I am doing to my Bermuda lawns right now, and you may have heard of a product called Echelon. Echelon is by FMC, and it's prodiamine and dismiss. Now dismiss, you may be familiar with it, has sulfentrazone in it, and it's gonna really burn down the sedges, and they burn down some other stuff as well. So what Echelon, the way they advertise it, they say if you spray it in the early spring, or that time frame, that you can get 100-day suppression of your sedges. Well, what I did, I just took dismiss by itself, and I mixed in metsulfuron with it, so it's basically the blind side, and I'm spraying it. And I'm trying to do it while the grass is still mostly brown, because it can cause some discoloration to the turf. But I'm doing it at that high rate, 12 ounces per acre, with the idea that I'm going to get ahead of the sedges and hopefully give me 100 days of burn down on sedges. So that's what I'm doing right now to my customers' lawns. Now I'm not doing that on the Zoysia lawns for a couple reasons. Because one, I don't think they typically get as many sedges. Two, I think they may be more sensitive to the burning and could possibly cause some delayed green up. So I'm a little more concerned about that than I am on my Bermuda yards. And then three, I'm doing something else on my Zoysia yards. I'm putting a real low nitrogen fertilizer on there to try to put some nutrients back in the soil to help them transition, help them start green up, and instead of pounding them with another herbicide that could delay the green up. So that's just kind of the approach I'm taking. The Bermuda grass, I need to just pound it with the weed control, because I know they're going to have problems, and I know the lawns, and some of them in particular, have a lot of sedge pressure, ones that don't drain well or stay wet. So I'm trying this. We'll see how well it works. I don't know yet, but we'll know in a few months. Hey man, that stuff really worked. I really suppressed the sedges a lot, and maybe even some of them will die, who knows. Now I do have a little bit of St. Augustine at my house as well, but I'm going to go out here first and look at some Centipede. Now it's out here by the road, it's early in the morning. I don't think I'll get hit by a car, but I want to see if I can sneak over here and see what the Centipede looks like right now. All right, here we go. Centipede, what's it looking like? Looks about like I thought it would. Mostly dormant. Now this is not green centipede, it's some kind of cool season grass. It's mixed in there. But you basically just got some dormant centipede grass. You got some weeds. Now nothing was done to this. So let me get out of the road and talk to you about centipede grass. Now there's some different approaches with centipede. Early in the year, some people may add a pre-emergent, but if you don't have a lot of crabgrass, you may not find that to be necessary on a centipede lawn, and it can actually maybe prohibit it from recovering quite as well from the winter stress. The spring tip, the main one I want to give you on your centipede lawns, is during this time where it's in transition, where it's starting to show some green life to it, you want to be very, very careful on spraying any kind of herbicide on the lawn. And I know this from experience. I sprayed metsulfuron one time on a centipede lawn during transition. The metsulfuron's MSM turf, or Manor might be the name on the bottle. And I sprayed that's real cheap and it kills weeds. If you do that, and I know this from experience, it will turn the yard yellow. It will extremely delay the green up. I'm talking about a month or two of delayed green up, and not, but it'll improve the yellow up. If you're going for yellow, and that's the color you want for your centipede lawn, I would highly recommend using metsulfuron during the spring transition. Atrazine is one product you can use on your centipede when it's dormant, or even during transition without a lot of negative effect on the grass. The problem with atrazine is it's a restricted use product, so you're supposed to have your commercial applicator's license to be able to use that product. I'm going to show you that low nitrogen fertilizer that I am using. I've used the same one on Centipede that I am on the St. Augustine as well, and Zoysia. So I'm not using it on the Bermuda, but if you want to do something that's kind of easy on the lawn, you don't have to do this, then this is what I'm doing. And you're doing a couple things. You obviously put some nutrients in the soil, but you're also not pounding it with a herbicide, which could severely delay the green up on these lawns. So on a Centipede, if you got weeds in the lawn and it's during spring transition, in my opinion, you just need to live with them. Once it turns green, then you can fertilize. And at that point, for broadleaf weeds, I use a product called Change Up, and it works great as far as controlling the weeds, especially on a Centipede lawn. Centipede grass can be sensitive, but it's very tolerant of Change Up. So this is this 2-2-14 blend that I'm using on my Zoysia, Centipede, and St. Augustine lawns as we head into spring. Now, before we go in and show you the St. Augustine grass, I want to talk about fertilizer. I had somebody the other day text me and say, Jason, when are you going to fertilize my yard? Well, you saw the Bermuda grass. It's so dormant. If I was to fertilize it right now, the fertilizer is not going to do a whole lot. But you can do a couple things. Once the grass starts turning green and growing, then you want to fertilize it, you can fertilize it. Fertilizing right now is not a very good strategy because you're going to waste a lot of fertilizer if you use a quick release fertilizer. Now, what some people do, and I've done this in the past, this is what a lot of golf courses do, they can put a slow release fertilizer on a dormant lawn. They can do it at this time of year, and like I use this Harold's Polyon coated fertilizer, and what it'll do, it'll sit there, and as the weather warms up, it'll start to release the nutrients. So that's great. If I want to do that and put it out early, knowing that I'm early, knowing the grass is not ready for it, but put it out early so it'll release when it is ready, then I can do that. Or I can just wait and do it when it's time. Now we say, well, why would you do it early? I mean, what's the point early? Well, because when it's time to fertilize, let's just say April or May, I might have a lot of other things I'm trying to do to the lawn at that time as well. So sometimes there is an advantage of putting it out early. But for me this year on my Bermuda lawns, I'm going to fertilize probably starting in April. I'll still use a slow release because sometimes in April it may still be too cool and you still may waste a lot of quick release fertilizer. So I'm going to still use that slow release to give me the longevity, hopefully feed the lawn for months, but also to play with any weather changes that may happen. I've got a little pathetic patch of St. Augustine grass. I want to show you that. Treating it basically like the Centipede lawn, putting a little bit of that 2-2-14 on there and just kind of babying it. No need to come in and pound it with a bunch of herbicides. Y'all, this is just pitiful. St. Augustine. I threw it under this tree because the Bermuda wouldn't grow, and it's several years later, it still looks terrible. And I'm trying to grow it in a rock bed, okay? So I just put it out here just to see what happened. Sometimes for the sake of a YouTube video, you can show people St. Augustine. But look at it, it survived the winter, and that's not always easy to do. We got down to about 9 degrees, and the St. Augustine held in there, and it'll thicken up and spread and look better. But you can see that it's just trying to wake up after a long winter's nap. Once it greens up, then we can start fertilizing it. My Centipede St. Augustines, I'll put some fertilizer on those probably in early May. Weed control, I like this Change Up metsulfuron combination, 16 ounces of Change Up, a 1/4 ounce or maybe a 1/3 ounce of metsulfuron. That's per acre, 16 ounces per acre and a 1/4 ounce per acre of metsulfuron. Almost impossible to mix that in a small little backpack sprayer with the metsulfuron because it's such a low rate. All right guys, I didn't tell you everything, but I told you some things. I hope the video's been helpful for you. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. Got a lot of videos in the pipeline, some of them in my head, some of them are actually in process. So I hope you guys will follow along this year. Also, go check out the Weed Control and Fertilization Academy at lawncarelife.com. There's resources over there like pricing charts and programs. I got a new thing coming out for people to help them with their Bermuda and Zoysia lawns. So a lot of things over there at lawncarelife.com. We'll see you guys in the next one.